Joining me on this broadcast is former Indian ambassador to United States, Meera Shankar. We also have Jayant Krishna, senior fellow, Center for Strategic and International Studies. Ambassador Shankar, with the agreement now being signed, what changes immediately in the India-US relationship? Have we now moved from strategic intent to strategic trust?
I think strategic trust will take time. It will have to be rebuilt over time. But yes, it's a positive development because the tariffs that India will now have are 18% on exports to the US, reduced from 50%. And these tariffs are lower than that of most Asian countries, Pakistan has 19%, Bangladesh 20%, Indonesia again 19%, Vietnam 20%, Myanmar 40%, China 34%. Only Japan and South Korea in Asia have lower tariffs of 15%. And in Europe, it's the EU, which has 15%, and the UK, which has the lowest at 10%. So India has a marginal tariff advantage over some of its Asian neighbors. And there is a reasonable gap between the tariff that India has and China has. So it does provide a window of opportunity to ramp up our exports. One can say that this is, a bit of an asymmetry of power that the US has managed to virtually throw the WTO agreements out of the window and impose unilateral tariffs, and that we all applaud when it reduces the tariffs that it has unilaterally imposed. But that's the reality of the world, and all countries have come to deal with it, have had to deal with it.
Yes. Yes, before I bring in Jayant Krishna, a word again from you, Ambassador Shankar. India has balanced its strategic autonomy carefully. That is the message that is also coming in from New Delhi, while understanding fully well that how crucial this deal was. Prime Minister Modi's team of negotiators kept on pushing it to ensure that they get the best out of United States. Having inked almost like close to 6 free trade agreements in the last 1.5 years, would you say that this deal, how do you look at this particular trade deal? If the deal with the European Union is being seen as the mother of all deals, what will be your assessment of this deal?
Look, this is a limited deal. It's not a full free trade agreement, unlike the agreement with the EU, which covers virtually all trade and also covers services and mobility. So it's a much broader agreement. This is a limited agreement for tariff reductions and improved market access. So it's not a full free trade agreement. It's a limited agreement, but it's useful because it reduces tariffs for India, which had risen to 50%, making exports from India to the US, uncompetitive. Of course, this doesn't mean that the goods which have, globally applicable duties, which the US has imposed under Section 232, won't apply. They will to steel, aluminium, automobiles and auto components. These are tariffs which apply to imports from all countries around the world, and they would continue. So this will cover steel, aluminium, automobiles, auto components, furniture, and so on. So those tariffs will still apply, but a lot of our labor-intensive manufacturers, which had suffered, garments, leather goods, marine products, gems and jewelry, all these will find avenues to export to the US and hopefully will be able to improve on their export performances of previous
Okay.
years. Some of them, gems and jewelry and
Okay.
marine products had managed to diversify to some extent, but garments and leather products were
That's
facing
right.
an uphill task. So this is particularly good for them.
Yes. So, okay, so Jayant Krishna, now that the deal is signed, which are the sectors that will see visible impact, particularly in the next few weeks?
So, Maria, some of the sectors like apparel, ready-made garments would stand to gain because the countries with whom we have the competition, there the tariff rate is 1 or 2% higher, 1 to 2% higher than us. So I think that's one. Carpets is another area. Carpets from Badoi, from Kashmir. Leather goods is yet another area where this benefit would happen. I mean, largely these are all labor-intensive sectors. Even chemicals. I think there'll be some lot of benefit to the chemical area. Benefit not vis-a-vis what used to be the tariff structure 1 year ago, but vis-a-vis this 50% tariff which was imposed on us. So I think, and the fact is now all countries face anywhere between 10% to 34% tariff. So I think it's in export market it's always a competitive advantage which is important rather than an absolute advantage. So I think these are the sectors where
Okay.
India will stand to gain, and also gems and jewelry. Although we must realize that gems and jewelry market as such is down because with the advent of lab-grown diamonds, I mean, I was in Surat the other day and found that a lot of
Yes,
almost 30 to about 40 to 50% market, companies have either shut down or they have reduced their operations substantially.
that's right. Yes, yes. We have Alexander Slater also joining us. He's the former MD of US India Business Council. What are the American CEOs saying, Alexander, particularly with regards to what will they be watching out for the next few weeks and in the run-up to this deal having been formalized and having the execution begun?
Maria, thank you for having me on today. It's great to be with you and my fellow guests. I think the key issue from the American perspective is where will India be? What are the specific purchases that Indian firms will be following through on? There's real opportunity to advance a lot of the integration and cooperation that had occurred over the last 5 years between the U.S. and India, and this is lowering the tariffs. Obviously, eliminates a barrier to further cooperation. As well as these purchases are a great way to move that forward. And so we've talked about areas like energy, high tech, defense, agriculture. That's where I'll be looking to see more about the details of this and which companies are likely to benefit in the United States.
Okay, so would you then say that with this deal now done and dusted, does it finally become China +1 for the US companies?
Well, I think there's a lot of reason to believe that India does have a competitive advantage coming out of this. They're from other countries where the tariff rates are higher. That gives Indian manufacturers and manufacturing from India an advantage. It's going to be a difficult road ahead in some ways because the United States is very much focused on reshoring, very much like India is. And so we're going to have to see how it shakes out. I think there'll be some industries where they'll create advantages and other areas where the United States itself is making strategic investments in trying to reshore manufacturing, and those will be places where India is less likely to be benefiting.
Okay, let me bring in Jayant Krishna again before I give the last word to Ambassador Shankar. Jayant Krishna, of course, there are a lot of questions politically, though, on agriculture sector. What do we know about it?
So, Maria, whatever we are hearing so far, like the deal with the European Union, the FTA, farm products have been kept outside the purview of this deal, right? So, there's been no concessions
That's
have
right.
been given to agriculture by India to the agriculture sector at all. So, I think status quo would continue on that. Although President Trump, in his social media social media message yesterday, told very clearly that expectation is that India would gradually reduce all tariffs to near 0% and reduce the non-tariff barriers also. But from whatever is known, my sources say that agriculture has been kept outside the purview of this agreement which has been reached. So this 18% is without taking cognizance of agriculture and perhaps the dairy sector also, because it was very, very important
Okay.
for India to protect the
Ambassador
interest
Shankar,
of its.
when we... Yes, please go ahead, Jayant Krishna.
Yeah, so what I was
Make your
saying,
point.
it was very important for India. I think India has been playing its cards quite well vis-a-vis the entire, 10 or 8 month long negotiation cycle with the US. It has acted with a lot of maturity. There was all provocation all through when President Trump called India as a failed economy, when he said that he has lost India and Russia to China. He's talked about a country where he doesn't care much about, all kinds of things he said, but India never reacted. So India has handled the situation with a lot of maturity, and finally this deal which has come, I think it's going to be a genuine win-win for both the nations, Maria.
Okay, 30 seconds. Final comment to you, Ambassador Shankar.
See, we don't know the details of the deal as yet because the final text is still being, I think, drafted and cleaned up. So we'll have to wait and see because, a lot will lie in what the details are of the deal. But going by what Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said at one of his conferences, he said that India's interests sensitivities in terms of dairy, rice, and wheat have been protected. He did not say the whole agricultural sector.
Okay.
So I take it that there could be purchases of some agricultural products. In fact, we have been buying from the US almonds and dried fruits and, cranberries and things like that. And I'm sure that there would have been some offtake of products like these, but also the possibility that there could have been compromises in areas where India felt it's not, crossing our red lines. But the focus from India's point of view would be on high technology, on defense, on
That's right.
providing, looking at joint collaborations in some of the emerging technology areas,
Fine.
including
Ambassador
critical
Shankar,
minerals.
really appreciate your time. We have run out of time now. So thank you for joining us, Ambassador Shankar, Jayant Krishna and Alexander Slater on this conversation.